Okay, so our final speaker for the day is Julie Barkworth from Corrective Services New South Wales, and she'll be presenting on the rollout of digital tablets in the corrective systems in New South Wales.
Lucky last. I know it's been a really big couple of days, guys. Stick with me, we're nearly there. I guess, yeah, as having this privilege of being the final presenter today, I do just one more time want to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation on which we're meeting here today, and on which a lot of this work that I'm going to present to you has also been done. I want to pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are here. I also want to pay my respects to all of the people in prison who have participated in this research and shared with us their experiences and insights. And I do, of course, want to acknowledge the incredible team of researchers that we have at the Corrections Research Evaluation and Statistics team at Corrective Services, many of whom have actually contributed to the work I'm going to present today. I just have the good fortune of being able to share all of that work with you. So I am talking to you today about the rollout of digital tablets in New South Wales correctional centres and some of the insights we've gained on how that might be contributing to building rehabilitative prison environments. So I'm going to give you a bit of a rundown about the implementation of the tablets, what they are, what they can, what they can't do, before talking to you about some of the evaluation work that we have completed, looking into those people's experiences, the way that they're using the tablets, etc. And of course, hopefully leave you with some interesting conclusions. So I guess the introduction of the digital tablets was an initiative that was implemented as part of the Premier's priority to reduce reoffending from 2019 to 2023. And it was an initiative that was aimed at transforming rehabilitation through the use of digital technology. Right, so we know people in prison spend around 16 hours a day in their cells with very limited activities to keep them engaged, keep them busy. And so this was an initiative aimed at making much better use of that time. The tablets give people access to a whole range of resources. They allow people to maintain contact with friends and family out in the community. They provide people with an opportunity to help develop some of their technological skills and prepare them for reintegration. So the tablets were initially introduced into 2 pilot centres in 2020, and then they've continued to be rolled out throughout the state in a staged process since that time. So we do now have over 12,200 tablets across 28 public correctional centres in New South Wales. The very earliest phase of that tablet rollout involved the inclusion of relatively limited features while it was being piloted, and then they've been kind of built on and added to over time to really enhance like the usability and purposefulness of the tablets. So the pilot phase, for example, included things like the integration of the telephone system, so that allowed people to make calls to their approved contacts while they were in their cells, and they were able to do that up until 10 p.m. in the evening. I shouldn't say were, they still can. They are able to do that. There were some pre-approved whitelisted websites available that gave them access to things like news websites. They had access to some free-to-use play of games, and then there was a facility messaging service as well, which allows staff to actually send direct messages straight to the tablets. Since that pilot, and as the tablets have rolled out further, some additional features have been included, so that involves the ability for people to actually purchase a variety of movies, music, e-books, audio books, games. There is a self-service kiosk application on the tablets now, so it means people can complete the buy-ups or their kind of weekly grocery shopping online, very much like we do our own online shopping. And they can access personal details as well. So whether they've got upcoming visits booked in, they can check their trust account balances, see how much money they have on their phone account, etc. There's also been the inclusion of an e-form system where people are able to submit requests to staff. They can ask questions, raise concerns, and that has really reduced the need for a lot of the paper-based systems that were in place beforehand. There's also a learning and development portal that's been added to the tablets as well, which is essentially a big repository of relevant kind of information and resources. So the inmate handbook is available on there, and they can also get access to a whole range of like health fact sheets and religious support information. And then following a really recent successful pilot, everyone is also soon going to have access to an integrated learning management system, which is going to facilitate opportunities for people to engage in self-directed learning while in their cells. And that's going to include additional sort of access to behaviour change interventions, education, skills building, development, that kind of thing. The devices themselves, they are mid-sized tablets with full colour touchscreens. They have been purposely built and are tamper resistant with system functionality stripped right back. So we're not just handing out iPads to people. They are designed to work on a very secure Wi-Fi network that is specific to each centre the tablet has been assigned to. So they can't connect to any other Wi-Fi network or any other wired internet connection of any kind. At the initial implementation of the tablets, they were generally issued to people on a daily basis at the time they were being locked back into cells, and then they were collected again in the morning at let go and placed into like charging bays during the day to get charged. Since then, a in-cell charging option has been trialled at some centres, and that's going to roll out across the state soon. So that means people get issued with a tablet and a charger that I will mention is a very short charging cable, and they are issued with that on arrival into the centre. They keep that device and the charging cable in their cell so they can charge it at any time, and then that's handed back either when they're discharged or transferred to another centre. Okay, so following the implementation of those tablets as they've gone through that staged rollout, we have completed a number of evaluations looking at people's views, experiences, and also some related outcomes that they've associated with using the tablets or having access to them. So I'm probably very ambitiously going to cover some of the findings from 5 studies that we've done in our team, and I'm going to draw on self-report surveys that have been actually administered via the tablets themselves for people to complete, and that was done at 2 different times of the rollout process. We also have conducted face-to-face semi-structured interviews with people in a couple of the centres during quite an early phase of the tablet rollout. And then we have drawn on administrative data that's held by Corrective Services to look at things like program participation and other sort of safety and order behavioural outcomes. So we found that most people had at least some previous experience with digital technology, either through using a tablet or a smartphone, but there was still this small proportion of people who were in prison that hadn't had any experience with any kind of similar technology. But they tended to rely a lot on the people around them to help learn how to use the tablets, which also kind of brought people closer together. And they did generally pick it up quite easily. They're not too difficult to use. Most people reported really wide and frequent use of the tablets, I'm sure, as you can imagine. We did see between the 2 surveys that we did, even more people reporting that they were using the tablets on a daily basis and usually for at least 2 hours at a time. The tablets generally were most often used to make calls by quite a large number of people, but there were a number of people who also reported seeing the value in having access to, obviously, the entertainment features, but also that access to their personal administrative information, so being able to check court dates and, like, as I said before, their visit bookings, those kinds of things, was quite beneficial for them. Of course, being able to do their buy-ups orders online and having access to some educational resources as well. When we asked people about any barriers or issues that they had experienced using the tablets, besides what was probably quite an interesting number of very grown men being upset about the removal of Candy Crush, the main features or the main issues that were raised were largely related to, like, connectivity issues with Wi-Fi, so Wi-Fi reception dropping out, or centres experiencing complete outages. So remembering, again, this was quite specific infrastructure that was designed and built into the centres for these tablets, and those centres have a lot of very large, thick concrete walls that are probably, creating problems with that. Some of the other reported issues were around their batteries going quickly flat, probably because they were using the tablets quite a lot. They reported some issues with speakers and headphones not working particularly well, and then the devices themselves just kind of shutting down. But a number of those issues since then have also been addressed through updates with new tablet models. They've issued new headphones. There's been some updates to Wi-Fi infrastructure, and I think that's a sort of work in progress. And of course, the recent introduction of being able to charge the tablets while in their cells is helping with a lot. What we were probably really interested in as well was how people perceive those tablets as a way to help maintain and improve their connections with other people, so particularly those friends and family who are out in the community. So we asked people to indicate if they had spent time in custody prior to the introduction of tablets, because this part was done quite some time after the tablets had been introduced. We asked them to indicate how often they might have had contact with their family and friends when, prior to the tablets being introduced, they only had access to unit phones in the outside of their cells, right? So pretty much limited time to be able to make phone calls. And then how often they were having contact with their family and friends following the introduction of tablets. So I'll just draw your attention to the blue boxes, I guess, and we can see that before the tablets were introduced, only around a third of people were actually having daily contact with their family and friends out in the community, versus once the tablets came in, more than 2/3 actually contacting them on a daily basis now. And then through a series of hierarchical regression analyses, we also found that having that increased contact with their family and friends was positively associated with people feeling as though those relationships had improved, and also that interactions with other people in prison and with centre staff, as well as their kind of overall experience of their time in jail, had improved as a result of that contact as well. We also examined the association between quantity and quality of tablet use on perceptions of wellbeing, autonomy, and the prison social climate. So quantity here, or the extent of tablet use, was determined by both the frequency and the length of time that people spent using the tablets, and then the quality of use we associated with whether they felt those tablets had improved their connections with family and friends and their overall experience of life in jail. So here we saw positive associations between the variables that measured or represented the quality of tablet use and people's perceptions of their wellbeing, autonomy, and social climate, while the extent of tablet use, so how often they used it, was actually negatively associated with each of those outcomes. We've kind of theorised those findings with respect to some of the literature that's being published on passive and active social media use, where Active use, so people actually interacting and engaging while being online, is often linked with lower levels of anxiety and depression, while passive use is associated with higher levels of depression and anxiety. So as a reminder, again, there were relatively limited features available on the tablet, so potentially people being able to use the tablets to call their family and friends was a bit representative of like active use. They're interacting with people through the use of the tablets. While a lot of the other features were really limited just basically to being able to read contact, which might be akin to, like passive social media scrolling, for example. So people who are using potentially those more passive features may be less likely to experience positive outcomes. When we asked people about how the tablets had impacted or changed their experience of being in jail, they specifically highlighted a couple of key features of the tablets and how they felt they had changed their time or their experience. So again, the big one was the ability to make calls to their family and friends while they were in their cell. That was particularly important for people who had children and being able to connect with their children. Because often prior to the introduction of tablets, they were generally getting locked into their cells before their kids had even come home from school. So they have very limited contact with their children on quite a regular basis. Being able to call their kids, their families, via the tablets at any time up until 10 p.m. Meant that they were able to have more regular contact with them. They were able to sort of engage in bedtime routines with their kids. They could help them out with their homework, that kind of thing. And people felt that being able to have that more active role within their family's life actually reduced a lot of the stress that they were previously feeling beforehand when they, couldn't help their families out or talk to their families when they knew something was going on. And then, that sort of, I guess, in a way was also linked with them talking about there being a reduction in friction within the centre as well between people that they were living with in the centre, and there being a general improvement in the overall atmosphere within the centre, because beforehand they're queuing up in lines all the time to use the unit phones. There's a lot of, we've got to make these phone calls before we have to be locked back into the cell. That's causing a rise in tension between people, and then these kind of altercations break out. A lot of people now are more inclined to wait until they're in their cells before making their phone calls, and so that's reducing a lot of that previous conflict that was happening when people were sort of fighting over getting time on the phones. The introduction of online buy-ups and self-service access to their personal administrative information was also important for people's sense of autonomy, and that was in a way indirectly related to a reduction in friction between people in custody and centre staff, where they're able to now access a lot of that information for themselves, whereas beforehand they were constantly relying on getting that information from staff, so they might be sort of pushing and getting aggressive in order to find out what they wanted to know. So fewer instances of tension or conflict as a result of that. And then, of course, having access to things like games, news and music also helped to relieve boredom and stress, and that had some flow-on effects for creating like a more calming atmosphere within the centre, again, reducing conflict between people. And generally all of that put together meant that they sort of had a better sense or better feeling of wellbeing, and that was evident not only for the individual, but also other people in prison and for staff as well. I'm just looking at this clock counting down. And the last two studies drew on administrative data and used a controlled interrupted time series designed to consider whether the implementation of tablets had a positive impact on some of our more measurable outcomes around program participation and safety and order. So the phased rollout of the tablets meant we were able to use centres where the tablets had been implemented as an intervention group, and then similar centres where the tablets had not been implemented at the time as a comparison group. So the first of these looked at whether the tablets had any impact on inmates' participation in behaviour change programs, which was measured through the proportion of expected dosage delivered. And it was found that indeed program dosage delivery steadily increased at the intervention sites, so where the tablets had rolled out, over a period of around 9 months following that implementation. So we thought here that kind of continued increase in participation over that time could be linked back to the tablets in a couple of ways. First, that, with some of the initial issues with the tablets were being addressed, additional features were being rolled out, and that may have translated to individuals being able to make better use of their time as a result of those features, and so they may have ended up being less resistant to attending the programs they needed to go to. And then other benefits like that improved sense of agency and better overall wellbeing might have also had positive flow-on effects for people's motivation around, goal-oriented behaviour change and, attending programs as a result of that. I am rushing now, but the second of these studies examined, as I said, these behavioural indicators around safety and order, where we looked at both recorded and proven violent incidents. So we see a pretty similar pattern for both of those indicators. We did see there was a declining trend in the rates of violent incidents prior to tablet implementation anyway, but after the tablets were implemented, those rates remain largely stable in the intervention group, but they actually increased quite sharply in the comparison group over, again, this period of around 15 months that was looked at following the implementation of tablets. So if you compare the difference between the two groups, which is that red line, we see that there was a significant decline in violent incident rates following the introduction of tablets. And I think if we think back to some of these earlier findings that I've already shared, we might expect that the results of some of the benefits of the tablets around, having access to phones while they're in their cells has reduced the need for people to queue to access the unit phones. And again, that was reducing the tension and the conflict that was associated around those kind of high-risk situations that people were in. Oops, I'm pushing the wrong button. Okay, so bringing all of that back together, I think we see some really promising findings that tablets are providing people with a whole range of benefits, and they're starting to, contribute towards building these more rehabilitative environments for them. There were obviously some really clear standout features of the tablets, particularly around the use of them for making phone calls and for being able to access their own administrative information, and that's been consistently identified as having a positive impact on a number of outcomes around their connections with people, their overall experience and perceptions around the atmosphere within the centre, as well as their sense of autonomy, and then, as we've just seen, even around program participation and safety and order within the centres. There have, of course, been challenges linked with the implementation of tablets with the technology issues, but again, I'll just reiterate that there are sort of continued ongoing efforts to address a lot of those problems, and also with ongoing updates and additional features being added to the tablets all the time, there's certainly some important opportunities for maximising the benefits associated with tablets in the future, particularly with the introduction of that learning and development platform and with the wider rollout of the integrated learning management system. So I'll just say that the agency certainly hasn't exhausted the opportunities for utilising what's become a really important resource for people in prison to help feel connected, continue to upskill, and also just work towards successful reintegration. So I am going to leave it there with a bit of a watch this space to see where we go next.
Okay, we've got a couple questions. Two in the middle, one in the back, one on the right.
I have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
First off, thanks for your presentation. I appreciate that inmates are now allowed to kind of connect with the real world. My first question is, do correction services determine what each institution is allowed to access, like the inmates are allowed to access? Or does the, I don't know what they're called here, if they're called wardens, the person who is in charge, I'm from Canada, do the wardens of the institution have the autonomy to determine what the inmates will have access to, or is it a top-down from correction services? And I have one more question after this, sorry.
Sure. It was Corrective Services that we've got a incredible strategic delivery team that works with the vendor and other people within the organisation to determine what becomes available, and the aim is that what is available to one person is available to everyone. I think the tablets are designed in a way that they can be configured to a specific centre. So if the centre differs in regime, for example, they can turn features on and off to suit the time that they need to be using them or not using them or whatnot. So, yeah.
Okay, and my other question has to do with the behavioral therapy or the classes that they are taking. I know that for some individuals inside prisons, the best intentions that people have in terms of changing behavior, the group therapy doesn't work because they're in such a vulnerable environment that they are not really giving the information that they need to in order to change. Are these programs allowed to have the inmates participate and be confidential so that they can participate and the other inmates do not see that they are the ones? Do you understand what I'm saying? They are the ones who are participating.
I do, and I'm just looking around the room trying to figure out if our director of programs is here.
The programs aren't actually delivered via the tablets.
Yep.
That's additional
Yep.
information or activities that the people can participate in if they choose to. Alternatively, they are group-based, largely group-based programs.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. I was sort of looking around for Danielle in the sense of I didn't want to specifically comment on the programs. It's a little bit outside of my area of expertise within the organisation. But yeah, as Tanya said, they're group-based programs. The idea of the tablets is that they'll be like an additional resource that people can use. So I don't think they're intended to replace people attending the programs in person, but yeah, they'll be used as an additional resource. So.
Thank you for your talk, so interesting. I am a family violence researcher and I'm really interested in the extent to which there's been any issues relating to the outside contact, for example, coercion, that kind of thing, whether that's been picked up or yeah.
I can't comment specifically on whether anything has been picked up. I can say that I mentioned that they're only able to contact their approved contacts, so it's the same process in terms of who they are and aren't able to contact as prior to the introduction of the tablets. All calls, again, through the tablets can still be monitored. And I believe the organisation is also currently trialling an AI program that sits over the top of that phone service as well. So as you can probably imagine, there's been quite an increase in the number of calls that people are making. So yeah, trialling out a system to be able to help with identifying any potential issues that might be occurring like that. But they certainly, same rules apply, that they can only contact people they're approved to contact. Yeah.
Okay, lots of questions. One in the middle, another one there.
Thanks, really interesting study to see operationalised. Just one question, was there any feedback from the friends and family of the people calling them? I'm just curious whether they found, being able to talk at different hours, good, bad, different, other, thanks.
We have not spoken to friends and family. It is a little bit outside of the realm of who we would contact to participate in research, but I could only speak then from talking to people in the centres and, their secondhand information coming back to us, that similar to as I was talking about, being able to talk to their kids to help out, with things that are unfolding at home seems to be good. But yeah, we haven't spoken directly to the friends and family of the people that they're contacting. Yeah.
Hi, Richard Parker from Corrective Services. First, 2 bits of praise. One is the prisoners I work with absolutely love them, and if you transfer one to a prison that doesn't have a tablet, they whinge like there's no tomorrow.
I bet.
The second bit is I work with high-risk offenders, and one of my sex offenders is very deviant and very weaselly and hasn't yet managed to hack into and misuse the technology, which I think is pretty good because he's quite determined and reasonably capable. My question is, have you used any of the control sites as new pre-post things when those control sites then get tablets to see, the rate of misbehaviour? Particularly, I think just the offences in custody, do they go down after tablets go? So following up other sites as they get tablets.
We haven't done that. There's sort of too much work for us to do and not enough time to do it in. We haven't done that yet. I would say that with some of these new features that are getting added to the tablets, I'm going to, my director's sitting down there, and throw us under the bus and say we'll probably have more work to do evaluating maybe some of the new tablet features. But I think it would probably be difficult to tease apart those effects at that time, just purely because of how much has changed with the tablets, and potentially like how much might have just changed within the environment of the centres themselves. But, again, watch this space. That may be something that we do continue to look at as time goes by as well. But yeah, and I think maybe whether I've spoken to the same person you have, but I was also told by someone that he tried and tried and tried to do all sorts of things with that tablet, and they just can't. So.
Okay, we've got one more. I'll squeeze in one more question just on the right.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's great. My question really is around, how did you get investment for this? Like, I know you mentioned, your minister, but really, how did you get investment?
I'm only going to say that, yes, there has been some funding provided for this, but beyond that, it's probably out of my realm to discuss the financial details. I'm happy for you to reach out to me, and I can potentially put you in contact with someone that can respond to that for you. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Join me in thanking all our speakers today. And I guess that concludes the conference. So you are free to go. Thank you.